That's just, that's the nature of trying to get good video.
Hey, I'm Quigs, and last week I shot a camping video that I had a lot of fun shooting, but I'm also quite proud of how it turned out. However, I also feel like there's a lot of room for improvement, and I wanted some professional feedback and critique on what I could have done better. Here's our recording of that call.
My name's Lucius Patnod. I work in a communications and marketing department, doing video and photography. I've been shooting video since I was like 11 years old, and I've been doing video work and photography work professionally for over a decade. A lot of these video things that Joe's learning right now are just kind of second nature to me, and it's kind of fun to verbalize those things because it helps me know them better. Anything else you need to know?
Are there any things after 10 years that you still find challenging in your field?
The challenge for me really comes down to the edits, because when it comes to like acquisition of video and audio, a lot of it is second nature, and a lot of it, like depending on the project and the equipment that I have, I know the limitations and I'm willing to accept them and like set my expectations of what it's going to look like in the edit, depending on the project, whether it's like a short documentary, an interview. The real challenge is like, for me, is in the edit, is like figuring out what the thing can be and will be. And there's projects that I really enjoy editing, but editing isn't my favorite thing. But you hand me a camera and say, hey, go like get good video clips, capture this event, capture this person's story. That gives me a lot of life. But once I have to sit down with all the footage, it's like, can this part be done already?
I was able to get pretty good shots. I don't think I ever had to change my shutter speed, but I did have to bump the ISO down as low as it would go.
Yeah.
And there were still a couple shots that had some blown highlights because there was just too much light.
Yeah.
But it was very few places. But what I found frustrating, especially on that day where it was mostly sunny, but there were some clouds, just the constantly changing light and the fact that I had to wear gloves and whatnot, like I was not really in a position to unscrew the filter. And like put another one on. So the V&D came in clutch because it just has this big old, knob thing, and I was able to like turn the knob and adjust. But I found myself adjusting this V&D multiple times in like even like a 10-minute period if I was doing different shots from just slightly different angles because of how drastic the light would change.
That's that's the nature of trying to get good video. That's not a bug, it's a feature of getting into this. I hadn't had time to look at your video today because I have a job.
That's fine.
So I'm taking a look at it. Oh yeah, clipped highlights. Yeah, you're like, I'm saying this is difficult, but also you're in one of the most difficult situations to get good lighting. And the iPhone's dynamic range, especially if you're trying to shoot log, just won't cut the cheese in this situation. So if you want to go cinematic, you can shoot cinematic on an iPhone, but to do it well, it's difficult because it has a much narrower window of error on it. Big cinema cameras have huge dynamic range, so there's a lot of forgiveness, and also you have professionals with decades of experience behind it, and they know how to adjust to every situation. That's why people like the action cams, because it's auto. That's a good shot. Well, the colors looked really good in that one. Oh, these beach shots look really nice. Whoa. Like how you were able to capture the sky and all the colors really well. That looked good.
Does it feel like the vibe changes at all, or was I fairly consistent in the vibe?
The big thing that I noticed right now is just you need a more experienced color correcting. And it's just like a lot of the shots in the same scene, you can tell the colors are shifting around a lot or they don't match. They're not shifting around in the shot. But like you cut to another thing and the colors don't seem to go with the previous colors that you just saw.
Interesting.
But like that's just an experience thing. There's nothing, you can't expect to get around that immediately.
The only time I changed the color balance was for vibes. So I used a LUT that I liked for the sunny day, and then I used a more matte LUT for the cloudy day to make it just a little bit more gloomy, because the camera didn't capture how gloomy it felt.
You said color balance, which means white balance. LUTs don't change white balance or anything. When it comes to LUTs and color grading, were you putting on the initial Apple conversion LUT?
Yes.
Okay, so you're doing that and then you're putting a creative LUT on top of that. That's the correct workflow. Good job. It's going to take some practice and experience to like develop your eye so you know like, oh, these two scenes don't quite match up when I cut between them. Yeah, it's an eye thing. It's just experience. It's not you have to keep doing stuff like this to finally understand what's happening when you're doing things. That's all.
There were some shots where the stylized LUT on the sunny day just felt too intense and a little bit too fake. I lowered the percentage of applied LUT. Could that be affecting that color correction that you were talking about? The main issue is that things were color corrected, and the LUT has not that much to do with it.
Stylized LUTs are just for a look you're going for. To use them properly, you need everything normalized underneath it. So normally in color grading, you put the footage in and apply the corrective LUT. And then you make sure that all those clips make visual sense together. Like if you're in one scene and like one of your shots is just super dark for some reason, the other one is normally lit, you need to bring that one up so it meets the same luminosity of the next scene. If you accidentally messed up the white balance, or just like, it depends on the quality of light. If like skin tones look different in one shot to the other and they're in the same scene, you need to get them as close to each other as possible. So you do all that, you normalize everything. So if you watched it straight, it would look like, oh, this goes together. It felt like it was shot continuously together. There's no jarring shifts in color that are unintentional or anything like that. No jarring shifts in exposure that were unintentional. And then you start applying those creative LUTs on top of it, and then you shouldn't have to adjust it too much more after that, aside from like, this scene overall, I would like it to be a little bit darker, and then you would adjust the lower, an adjustment layer on below the creative LUT to get like, make this whole scene a little bit darker and moodier, and so you adjust the exposure below that. My
eye for color and stuff hasn't really been developed, so like I had a really hard time telling that there were color issues in that video, and you've spotted them immediately. Would a cheat code for that be to use one of those calibrated color reference cards before each shot, just so that I can have like, this is what purple and green and stuff are supposed to look like, and then hopefully that can teach me, like as I'm adjusting things, I can start noticing like, oh, this is too reddish, and sort of develop that innate color grading skill by always using a reference card to kind of get me most of the way there, to kind of train my eye.
No, not the way you're describing. The reference board is so you can look at the scopes. Have you looked at the color scopes at all?
Yes, I didn't really for that video, so I guess I should have.
Yes. Our eyes lie to us all the time. And so for an objective measure, you need to be watching those scopes for everything. You'll be working on something, you walk away, you walk back, and you're like, why is this so yellow? I just added so much blue into it. And it's just because you've been looking at something else. That's it. If you really want to get into color grading and want to keep things consistent, your baseline is those objective scopes with data on it. So you need to learn how to use those while you're color grading. That'll tell you like what's actually dark, where your shadows are, when your shadows are actually clipping, when the highlights are actually clipping. Your eyes can't tell you that. You might be able to, with enough experience, get a little more accurate, but you always need to reference the scopes, because it'll tell you like, there's a ton of red in this scene. If you want it cooler, you gotta pull the reds out and boost the blues. And you need to learn a little color theory too. You need to understand like when you add red, and how it mixes with blue and what the effect is going to be, and what green has effect on everything else.
When would the color card be useful? Would it mostly be useful for matching scopes between disparate cameras that are not of the same?
You might show it to the camera when you're in one particular scene that you're going to be shooting a lot in, and that might help a color grader do the basic color pass to get everything consistent. But that's pretty much it. If you're out and about and the camera's changing all the time, the most that you'd want to do is like bring maybe a middle gray card so you have a spot to set white balance. Yeah, I don't think the color board will help you that much in this situation. So depending on the scene. So scenes with people in it, the most important factor is people's skin tones. And so when I'm grading footage and there's people on screen, I'll literally take a mask, a point mask, and just cut out their face, and then use the scope with the skin tone line and make sure their skin looks normal. That's the first thing I do. And then I take that off and the color's good then. And you could probably do more, but like people are gonna have normal looking skin tones. And then after that, I'm making sure that blacks aren't clipping and the highlights aren't clipping out. And that's how I'm normalizing everything. If people aren't in it, it is kind of a little more like, this looks how I feel it should look like, but then you're also comparing with like what's next to it, you know, in this scene. Is there another person in this scene? Like I'm looking at this car shot right now. If there was another shot of you like driving the car, I would do all the color normalizing on the driver shot, make sure the driver looks normal, and then duplicate those edits onto the next shot that just shows the outside of the car in the wheel, and let that dictate everything. So I let people's skin tones dictate things all the time, because not all the time do you have a good middle gray to work with.
So rather than bug you for more questions, it just sounds like I need to go out and film more.
Most of your best shots are the ones where you protected your highlights. Don't be afraid of letting things go into shadow. That's in fact more cinematic in my opinion. It's very YouTube to make things very evenly and brightly colored. Like this one shot, and this is a very challenging shot that you picked, where you're just getting out of your car at the beginning and there's the sun in the background. The shadows look really milky. It looks really flat. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of it. So one, I would have moved the camera so it's not staring directly into the sun. I might have tried to like swing it off to the right or to the left, so you would see like the car and then you taking stuff out of the car that way instead of looking directly into the car. But again, that's experience. Like, I only know that because I've been doing this for over 10 years and working mostly with natural light. So it's like, where's my light source? Okay.
Yeah.
There are times where it's very fun to do backlit shots, but normally what you do is you expose for the sky and you let whatever's in front of the sun just be a silhouette. Cinematic lighting is you shoot into the shadow side of a person's face. So the light is always kind of on the other side of the camera, not shooting into the camera, but you're shooting into the shadowed side. So do the same thing when you're with the sun, when you're out and about. There's gonna be situations where you can't do anything about it. That's fine. But when you have
like the mirror driving in the road scene.
So yeah, this wheel shot, that's just how it is. In fact, I think you picked the right side, the sunlit side. Yeah, this mirror shot, and this is me like basing off what I think happened after you've already color graded it. So I don't know what the original footage looks like. You're trying to, make sure your face was exposed, but you're also fighting the sky. So in this shot, either you need to expose for the sky, and based on this sensor, it just may mean you can't see your face at all, or expose for your face. You need to be thinking like, what's the important thing for me in this shot? What do I want to see and expose for it? So if it was your face in this situation, make sure your face was really well exposed. And if the sky goes, the sky goes. Determine what's important in the frame and expose for it.
This is why I wanted to reach out to you and get your advice, because the way that you're seeing things Like, I don't know what I don't know, and so this has been super helpful in not only like figuring out like where I could have done better and what I did like just completely wrong, but also
And this isn't
figuring out what's important.
Yeah, this isn't completely wrong. Like, this is a cogent video. This is a good video.
Where I was going with this video is I was trying to shoot for more consistency, and so I feel like I failed like between shots and whatnot. So like obviously the color grading was a bit of a loss there. I'm happy with the video in the sense that I was able to capture the mood that I wanted, but I wanted to make things a little bit more consistent. That's an area that I want to grow in, and so your advice on what to focus on to bring out that consistency, I think is super helpful for the next video that I'll shoot. And I think I also go in with the assumption that I can control more than I can. So
Yes.
I think one of the biggest takeaways, pick the thing that's important, and then whatever else is lost is lost.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to me and also being willing to retcon it into a video for me.